Bismillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'du. In this video, I'll be doing a short tutorial on how to do CRUD or create, read, update, and delete using Laravel. So now I will open the project, the previous project, Hello World, Laravel Hello World project. And before I do that, I'm gonna open the terminal. After I open the project, I'm gonna open the terminal, then type in PHP Ahsan to start the server and to make our web page accessible in this URL. Now, as you can see, we open this page, and this page, if you go back to the code editor, sorry. Okay, so if you go back to the code editor and then open in resources, views, welcome.lib.php. So this is the file that is viewed here, displayed in this homepage, the code out in this page. So this is actually this code here, we displayed on the page. So now we're going to make a new page. So to do that, we can create a new file inside the views folder. For example, I'm going to make index.php. So it must end with .date.php. And in the index, I can create this basic tree here. And we name the title to, for example, or maybe I'm not going to rename the title, just in the document. And in the body, I'm going to type in h1 hello world. And if we refresh the page here, as you can see, nothing has changed because we only created a new file. We haven't configured that this is the file that needs to be viewed in the home page of our URL here. So in order to do that, I can go to routes web.php. So here, as the command says, here is where you can register web routes for your application. These routes are loaded by the web service provider, and all of them will be assigned to the web middleware to make something great. So now, the first thing we're going to see under the command is route get, and this thing here, and inside that, the first argument is a string with a slash in it, and then the second argument is a function with return new welcome inside this. So we're gonna delete this and make one ourselves. So first, just like the default, we're gonna type root double dot then get. So the function of this is to listen if a client requests to our URL. Then we're gonna type in inside the get for the argument. First one is a string with a slash in it. So the function of this is to listen when a client tries to access our web page on the root of the domain. And after the slash, the next argument is a function. And inside the function, we're gonna type return the view, and inside the view function, we're gonna give a string. Inside the string is index. So how this works is whenever a client tries to access the root, because there is nothing after the slash, that means the client tries to access this URL with nothing after this slash here. This is what we are referring to in this. So for example, if a client we want to listen if a client tries to access our domain slash home, for example, then in this first argument here we're going to type in home. But we want to listen if a client requests the roots of our domain. So we add nothing after the slash. And then if a client requests to access the root of the domain, we're going to run this function which returns the view index. And this view index actually refers to our index.break.php. You can see it by control clicking this index text here, and it's underlined, so that means you can click it, and it redirects us to this index.break.php, the previous file that we created. So now, if we refresh this page, it should show our hello world heading 1 text, as we have defined this index.break.php. So now for this CRUD, I will now make a, for example, I'm going to make H2 item 1 and P content of item 1. So if we refresh this page, it will show us item 1 and content of item 1. So in this CRUD tutorial here, we will now try to make this update in real time, or turn this web page into not a static web page, but a dynamic web page. So we can do that by deleting this, or not deleting that, but adding on top of that is this b double dot for each. The first one, collection, we're going to rename it to data as item, just name it as item. Then cut these two lines here and paste them here. Now if we try to refresh this, it's going to say undefined variable data. Because we haven't defined anything for the variable data, we just try to look through it, but we haven't defined it. So how we are going to define it is by going to our web.php file. Then in the return view index, we're going to add a second argument inside the view function, which is an array, an associative array. The key is data. Okay, I'm going to format this to make it look better. The key is data, and then the value is another array with a title, for example, item 1, and a content, for example, content of item 1. Now I can cut this title item 1 and content of item 1 and create another array and put those inside this array. So now we have for the second argument in the view function an array with one value. The key is data, and the value is an array. Inside the array is another array. Inside that other array is the title and the content. And now I'm gonna block this, copy that, add a comma, and then duplicate the last array of the title and content, and modify each title and content. This is only for example. So for example, item 3, content of item 3. And now in the index.php, I'm going to modify this inner text of h2 to curly bracket, and item title. And inside the p, curly bracket, item content. So now if we go back to the web page, to the view, the browser, fresh, okay, through an exception attempt to read property title operate. So that means I try to read the item improperly. So instead of using the arrow here, I'm gonna give a bracket after the item string, and inside the string, now I will type in title. And same for the quote inside single quotes and inside brackets the, the arrow. Now if we try to refresh it, it now shows three items here. The first one is item 1, it's content of item 1, and so on. Item 2, content of item 2, and item 3, content of item 3. So that means we have successfully fetched this second argument in the view inside our index.php and loop through it, then create h2 and 3 elements accordingly. So sorry, how it works is we pass this array with the data inside through the index.php via this view function. And the index.php, once it is open in the view function, it automatically catches the second argument, and it's automatically defined a variable named data because it's our first key here inside our index.php. And then when we type in for each here, for each data as item, then we are looping through data and setting each of these smaller arrays, the array type and content, as uh, the variable item. So we loop 3 times because there are 3 items here, and each time the title and content changes. So the first loop, the title is item 1 and the content is content of item 2. In the second loop, the title is item 2 and the content is content of item 2, and so on. So now that it's working, I we will now create a model. So now I will delete this part here, or cut it. And now in terminal, I'm gonna open another terminal. Then I'm gonna type in php Ahsan make model. Okay, what's wrong? So PHP Artisan make. So we're going to make a model here. Create a upper model first. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Before we make a model, we need to first make migration. So we're going to type in PHP Artisan make migration. Watch it, the migration we made. So I'm going to see in the file thing here, open database migrations, and we're going to follow this template for the name here, which is create users table. And now I'm going to make a table name data. So I'm going to type in create data table. So now a new file is added to the migrations folder and create data table. So now we're going to open the file, and then inside this file it returns a new class extends migration, and inside the class the first one is a function, a public function named up, and in the function is a schema, create data function blueprint table, table ID and table timestamps. So if you're familiar with tables and databases, this is actually how Laravel makes or defines tables. So this is the table here. This is the table object, the table creation object. The name is data, and these two here are the columns. The first column is ID, and the second column is timestamps. So we're going to make another column. So we're going to type in under ID table, and the file type on the data type of the column. So I'm going to type in string for a string or char or varchar data type, and inside the string double these things. The first argument is the name of the column. So the name, I will give the name title, and then the second argument is the length. As you can see here, length is default is null from the The length is, for example, 256. Then I can copy this, paste it under it, and for the second new column, I'm going to give the name content, and the length is, for example, 1024. Now, after I do that, I'm going to open this one, .n, the root of our file, and in the third group here, you can see everything that starts with DB, or it's the short of database. So we will now configure the database and the tables, everything related to database that our application will be using. So the first DB connection, the second DB host, the third DB port. There's three values, we don't need to change them because we don't need to. And the third one, the DB database, which is the database name, we can change it according to what database we will be using in the MySQL. So in this case, I am using XAMPP for the database. So I will open XAMPP as administrator. Yes. And I need to make sure that both Apache and MySQL is started. So it says stop there, it means they are started. And then in the MySQL part, open the admin. Now I need to wait for a few moments for the PHP MyAdmin to load. Okay, now I'm going to create a new database by clicking on this new button here on the left panel, new, and the database name, for example, I'm just going to make it the same, hello world. I can copy this database name, so we don't need to change that on the end file. Okay, database has been created. Now the table name, I'm going to make the table, or we don't need to make the table manually because we're going to make the table using the PHP Artisan migration. So I can just skip this step here. The table is found in the database, it's okay. Now back to the base code. The DB underscore database is hello world. The username is root, and the DB password is none, because in the XAMPP, the default is for the username is root and the password is nothing, so I'm just gonna stick to that. Then back to the migration, I can now type in the terminal PHP Artisan migrate. Now as you can see, it says uh, there are 5 things here. Yes, 5 things, and each of them says done. So that means our migration process was successful. And now if we look back at the PHP myadmin, refresh this page. Now we have five or six new tables inside the database of hello underscore world. That means our migration was successful and have the tables have been created. And now if I look at the data table, as we have defined here in the create data table migration file with an ID to string rows and a timestamp. Now the structure of this table, we have an ID, the top one, and it's already auto implement, so you don't need to manually change the value every time. And the title, content, and 2 timestamps. The first one is created at, and the second one is updated at. And both of them are nullable elements. We don't need to have them explicitly every time we create a new record or modify an existing record, so they will be automatically assigned. So now, back to the VS Code. Now we have successfully created the migration and migrated, and also the tables. I can close this file here and close this one as well. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to make a model. A model is what we will use to access the database. So it's like something between us, the application, and the database. So we will use the model to access the database, to read the things inside, to add new things, and to delete things as well. So to do that, I'm going to type in PHP artisan make double dot model. What should the model be named? I'm going to name it data. And the name of the model must uh, the name of the model is the name of the table, but with a capital letter at the beginning. So it's data with a big D at the start. Enter. If you like any of the following, for now I'm gonna skip none. Okay, now model created successfully. This path here, so I can open that. It's app models data.php. So I'm gonna open that app models data.php. Now to configure our model so we can access our data table here, I'm gonna add a protected uh, table with the value of a string and the name of the table, which is data. And also, when we later want to fill some rows and add a new record, we need to also specify the rows that is fillable, or yes, we are able to fill it. So we're gonna create another protected variable named fillable, and the value is an array containing the names of the row. So the fillable rows for this case is of the title and content because the others are automatic. Title, content. Okay, now that it's done, the next step we're gonna do is make a controller. So I'm gonna type another command in the terminal, php artisan make. So we're gonna do this one here, make controller. So I can copy that. PHP, Artisan, paste, make controller. Hit enter. And the name of the controller, the name of the controller is the name of the model plus controller with a big C. So in my case, the name will be data controller. The type of controller that we like. Can I skip this? I'm gonna try empty, and the controller is now created inside app HTTP controllers. App HTTP controllers data controller. Okay, so now it's created. So the function of this controller to actually store the previous functions that uh, are assigned to as the second argument for this root get here. So because we have copied those, I'm gonna redo that. I can now paste it in data controller.php. But before that, I need to put a public function inside this class data controller. To do that, I'm going to type in public function. The name of the function is actually up to you. For example, in this case, I'm going to type in index, and inside we're going to type in the return view index. So if I did that correctly, I can also click this to refer to this index.data.php, and then like I previously did in what the PHP, I can also assign the data array as the second argument in this view. So now in order to connect this function to our what the PHP root listener, and the second argument of the get, I'm going to type in data class. Okay, and then put them inside square angle brackets, and then after that, the name of the function, which is index, as string. So string index. Now, if you see we have an error here, undefined type data, I can just click right click on this and click import plus. And then we are going to, oh actually, it's not data, it's data controller. Okay, now it's still showing an error, so I can do that, right click, click import plus, so it automatically imports this our data controller using the use keyword here on the top. Now, if we go back to the browser and refresh the page, it should be okay. This actually works, but the error is that we haven't defined the data variable for each loop here. This is the previous error that we got previously as well. So to solve that, I can just specify it here, or I can create or define a variable, then paste the array as the value of the variable here. Okay, and then the second argument in the view function here, just put the data variable. Now if I go back to the browser and refresh, it should not go errors. As you can see, it shows exactly the same thing as before. No changes. The only thing that we did and that has anything to do with the page is that we moved the function inside our data controller. So now the next step, we are going to try to read the contents of this table, and instead of using this static dummy data here, we're going to uh, read the contents of this data table and pass it as the second argument, and then display it in our index.data.php file here. So in order to do that, I can now delete everything here except the data part, because we're going to put it inside data. So now what I'm gonna type in is data, which is the name of our model, double dot double dot. Oh, so if you do it right, and it's supposed to have already automatically imported our data model, but if it hasn't, then we can just right click on the data part or the error part, and then click on press, just like previously. So now, or before I try to test it, I will change the second argument of the view function to compact, which is a function to turn our this result of the data all, which is every content or fields or records of our data table, to an associative way or an object that we can easily access in our index.data.php. So I'm going to type in compact, and inside as the first argument is an array and a string inside, which is the name of the variable data without the dollar sign. So if I reload the page here, as you can see, it doesn't show in items because we haven't had we haven't had anything as the field in our data table. So now we're going to try to insert some data manually by clicking on insert, and the first one title is item 1, second one is content of item 1. We're going to try to add two fields. So the second one, the title is item 2, content of item 2. And go. Okay, 2 rows inserted, so that row ID 2. Okay, I'm going to check and browse. Okay, we now have two records here. Now if I try to reload this page here, as you can see, we can now see the two items showing up, and this item actually comes from this table here. So we have successfully done one of the four processes of CRUD, which is to read. But the second one actually CRUD. So we have done read successfully, and the second step we're going to maybe we're going to create like a create process, so we can add a new item here without having to manually insert a new row. Instead, we will be able to add a new field in our web page here. So we will have some input fields, and we can type in the title and the content, then the submit button that will send the data inside our database. And then once we go back to this page, it will refresh, and then it will instantly show our new item. So to do that, in the index.data.php, I'm going to add one more thing, which is the input fields. For example, label for title, input type text, name, title, and it will be required. And the second one, I can just copy this, content, content. Okay, so now if we refresh this page, it should be showing yes title and content. Okay, to make it look better, I'm gonna give a break there, and also another break and a submit button type submit. The text is just add. Okay, I almost forgot one more thing, just to wrap everything in a form. So I'm gonna put everything we just added inside form form tags here. So I'm gonna the closing format this. Okay, now the action will be, for example, dot add, and the method will be post. Okay, now if we try to type something, for example, item 3 and content item 3 and click add, it's gonna redirect us to our URL and slash add. But it says for not found because we haven't defined anything for this root. So in order to do that, we're going to go back to this code in the web.php, the root get. I'm gonna copy that one, paste it on the get, and then in this first argument inside the get function, type in add, which means it's gonna listen if a client attempts to access this URL here. Okay, so now I'm going to change this second one as well, the index to add, for example, because it refers to a function inside our controller. That means I need to also make another public function named add. And in order to be able to read the send data, I'm going to add a parameter or argument inside the function with the type request, and the name is this request. And then if we try to submit it again, it doesn't show a 404 error. Instead, it shows the post method is not supported for group add. Supported methods get and head. So that's because in the web.php file here, we added that the add root inside a get function, which means it listens to the add root for the method get only. So you can change that using by typing in post instead of get. So now by click it again, it will not show a 404 nor a unsupported method, but instead it says page expired. That's actually because a security reason in Laravel that prevents us from uploading anything using a form unless the form has this tag here, CRSF. So this one line here acts as the token key that verifies that this data indeed come from a Laravel or our own application and not somewhere else out there. So it makes our application more secure. So now if we try to refresh and submit another data, it will still say page expired. Okay, we're not supposed to put that here, sorry. Instead, put it inside the form. Okay, here, so the CSRF tag or up here is inside the form. If we try to refresh it, try to send another data, it will not show any more page expired error, Instead, it will just show a blank white page, and that is because we haven't returned anything in our public function add here. We haven't returned anything. So now the next step, I'm going to try to catch the sent data, which is the title and content data, by doing, now I'm going to define a variable in data, and the value is request arrow all, and then I'm going to return that data. Now if I try to click add, now as you can see, it has returned us the data here, which is the first one, and the data is formatted as JSON here. The first one is token, as I mentioned for the SCRF token, is for security reasons. The second one is title, which is E, as I typed in earlier, the content is also E. So now that means we have successfully patched the sent data and successfully returned it, sorry, stored it inside this data variable and returned it. So now we're going to make that this sent data will be added to our database. But before I do that, I'm gonna do one more thing, which is to go back to web.php and change the post method to put. And this is a special method in our file, used usually for queries that will handle data addition or something that we're going to put inside a table or to add something in new record. And this index.php, I'm going to add another line, which is method, dw.method, inside the inside these things. The first argument is a string put. So now if I refresh and try to send another data, nothing changes because we only changed the root method and also the root method here, and also the form action method. And when both methods are the same, then no errors occur and everything just goes the same way. So now in order to put our new file, insert our new file inside our data table is by still having the data variable, then call the data model data create. Inside the create function, the first argument is an array, is an associative array. The first one, the key is title for our title row. The value is data title. The name of the data set, which is also title. So it will be very practical if you have all the names the same. So you just type in title, data title, and for the content as well, content, data, content. So this title and content left here refers to the name of our row here, title and content. And the second one, the title and the content on the right side here of the data refers to the name of the data in our form index.php here, which is defined here, name title, and second name content. So now, after I do that, in the return part, I can type in redirect dot slash nothing, because we want to, after we process the data and add it to our table, we want the user to be redirected back to this root page here with nothing after the slash here to the main page. So I can try to delete this Now if I try to fill in the form and click add, as you can see we have successfully added a new data here. It instantly shows here the third one after item 2 and after item 1 and item 2, E with the content of E as well, because that's what I typed in. And also if you look at the PHP My Admin and refresh the page, you will see that there's a new row or a new record here with the ID 3, the title E, and the content E. Exactly the same as what I typed in this form here. So that means we have successfully done the second step in our CRUD tutorial, which is to create. So we have done create and read. So the next one, the easier one between delete and update is of course delete. So now we are going to add a delete functionality. So the user can click a button to delete any one of these free data here. And also I forgot to mention that in this tutorial I'm only showing the CRUD and the Laravel thing, so I'm not doing too much for the UI here. You can do it yourself. Now before I can do that, we of course need to have some buttons for uh, each of these items here. So I can just put inside the for each. The button will be uh, an A, an anchor, and inside the anchor, the button. For example, it will say delete. And the A will point to dot slash delete with a question mark ID equals. I'm gonna add uh, curly bracket, double curly bracket, and inside that double curly bracket is item ID. So that means if I refresh the page here, if I hover my mouse over the delete button on the left button here, it will say delete ID 1 for the item 1. For the item 2, it's delete ID 2. And for the item 3, it's delete ID 3. So the ID is the same as the item that we want to delete, the ID of the item that we want to delete. So now we're going to give the functionality by going to web.php and adding another root. Now the method would be delete, another Laravel method for roots specialized for deleting items. So the first argument will be the root, which is delete, delete, and then the second argument is, I'm going to copy from this one, data controller, and the name of the function will be delete. And we are going to create this function later. So now in the data controller, I'm going to create that delete function under the previous function. I'm going to type in public function delete. Also an argument to fetch the request. Now before I'm going to add the delete functionality, I'm going to first try to return request input.id. So I don't know if it works. I'm going to try refresh this, and when I click delete on item 1, for example, the get method is not supported for delete. Support get methods delete. Okay, so because that didn't work, I'm gonna try the web.php. Just gonna change the delete method to simply get. refresh it, and I'm gonna try clicking the delete button after item 3. And as you can see, it now shows a page with this 3 number here, 3, because it's the ID. And if I click on the item 1, it shows 1 here. And that happens because in the controller here, data controller, I type in return request import ID. So it returns one of the request variables named ID. And the request variable is given from this URL here, delete question mark ID. So this is the request variable or parameter here, ID equals 1. So by doing that in the data controller, we can read the ID parameter by doing request import ID. So because that works, I can cut this part. Then before you return, I'm gonna put the ID inside a variable like this. Then I'm gonna do data for the model. Find ID. This will ask our data model to find inside our data table a row with the key ID, and the key is the ID, of course, with the value of ID. So it will find a row with the value of the ID. So, for example, if I want to delete with the ID of 1, so it will find a row with the ID 1 here, which is this first one, and selects that row. Which, after it finds that row, I'm gonna do the function delete. So after it finds the row with the specified ID, it's gonna delete that row. Then after doing all that process, I can also do return redirect. Just gonna copy from the previous one, redirect string // Now it should be working now. I'm gonna try to delete this third item, which is E with the content of E. I'm gonna click delete. Okay, so it instantly redirects us back to this home page. But now the third item, which is the EE item, is gone. And if you look at the PHP MyAdmin and refresh, of course, the third record with the ID of 3 is also gone, which means we have successfully done the third process of the CRUD, which is to delete. And the last one, the only one we need to do, the last one is update. CRUD, create, read, update, delete. We have done everything except update. So for this update one, to make it easier, I'm going to create a new view with the name, for example, edit.blade.php. And in this file, I'm going to copy from the index file, paste everything, and I'm going to delete these for each things here. And in the form, in the H1, I'm going to delete, replace the H1 content with editing to adjusting item. So user knows that when they are viewing this view here, that means they are trying to edit an existing item. Okay, so now I'm gonna add another button after each items, which is the edit button. Change the name to edit and the date to edit as well. And so what the PHP add a new route, which is route get edit. And the function will be named edit. So now in data controller, I'm going to create a new function named edit. Public function edit, catch the request parameter, and now just like previously, I'm gonna try to return the ID first to make sure our function is working. Okay, now if I refresh this page and click edit on item 1, for example, and define variable return. Okay, I'm so sorry. It should be request here. Edit item 1 and it returns 1. Edit item 2, it returns 2. That means it's working. The CRUD will need to get the ID. So now I can cut this. Define a variable named data. Put the value of the data model. Find this one, which is the ID. And after that, call the variable again with the function. Oh no, sorry. Return view edit view, which is this one, edit.get.php. The second argument is an associative array with the key data and the value. Oh no, you don't have to do that. You can just do compact data. In the edit.get.php here, we're gonna add another input under the method. The type is number. The name is ID. And the value is ID. And now in the inputs, I'm gonna also add a default value to each input by using the value attribute and then echo title, value, echo content. Okay, and then change this button down here to update because it's editing an existing data. When user saves it, it's update, not add. I'm gonna try if it works. For example, I'm gonna click edit on item 1 and find variable ID. So that means ID is undefined. I'm gonna try now to instead do data ID like that. Edit item 1. I'm gonna say undefined variable title. That means the ID 1 is working because the error is now in the title. So I can now copy this and just paste it in the title and also the content. Now I'm gonna try clicking edit on item 1 again. Now as you can see, it shows editing existing item. The input for the name ID is 1, title is item 1, and content is content of item 1. Exactly the same as the previous data. For item 2 is also the same. Title is item 2, content is content of item 2. And now the input name ID is only for the purpose of specifying the ID in our update function later. I will define it later. So in the function, when it's processing and attempting to update the field, it knows what the ID is because we sent it with the other data. So now I'm just gonna add hidden here. So when I click edit, the ID input will be hidden, will not be shown. So you don't have to modify it. And also, the user shouldn't know to modify it unless they do expect, of course. But we assume the user wouldn't do that, and the ID will remain the same. So the user will only need to modify the title, the content, and click update. So now if I try to modify, for example, the content and click update, it's of course going to show found because we haven't defined the listener for the root update. So I'm going to add that to the web.php with the method post now, and the route is update, and the function is will also be update. Then on the data controller.php, I will make another function, public function update, and fetch the request parameters in the request variable, and inside this function, I'm gonna define a variable which is data model find request input ID, and this value will be the same as the ID input I previously mentioned because it's also sent with the post method into this function here. So we can read it by doing request input ID and pass it into this find function to find the row inside data table with the ID. And then under that, I can do data update, and inside that, the argument for the update function is an array with the keys title. Value is request input title, and the second key is content, and the value is request input content. And I'm gonna return redirect and just copy this previous one, redirect dot slash nothing. So now it should be working. Now I'm gonna try to edit item 1, for example. I'm gonna edit the content, for example, content of item 1, edit it, and perhaps the title as well. Item 1, edit it. Okay, I'm gonna try to click update. The get method is not supported for route update. Supported methods post. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to the edit update.php, remove this method put, remove that one line there. Now try again. Item 1, click edit. Item 1 edited, content of item 1 edited. I'm gonna try to click update and see if it works. Now as you can see, it instantly redirects us to the home page with the item 1 instantly updated to what we typed in earlier, which is item 1 edited, and the value is content of item 1 edited. And the item 2 is still the same because we didn't do anything. And if you see inside PHP MyAdmin and refresh, as you can see, the record for the item 1 is also edited. That means we have successfully done the fourth and the last process for our CRUD here, which is update. And how it works is when we click the update button inside this edit view here, it will send the data, everything with the method post to this URL here, .dot/update. And inside the data controller, it will trigger the update function. First, it will define a data variable with the data find method with the ID, the request ID, and then with the data variable, it will use the update method to update the contents of the existing field with the specified ID with the title, request input title, and the content request input content. And lastly, it will redirect the user to the homepage using this redirect dot slash. Okay, so our simple code application is done. And maybe that's all for my tutorial today. Thank you very much for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.